Dick heard beeping as the traces of his medicated sleep was filtered out of his system. He tried to stretch, but his arms, neck, and legs were mostly locked into place. He tried to look around, but between his stiff neck and locked eyelids, he couldn't make out the figures around him. The medical bed was not built for his species. He felt someone grab his jaw with a hand far too soft to be a Kralian's. They carefully applied medication to the joint at the plating that covered his eyes.
Be careful not to get it in his eyes. It could blind him,
a familiar voice warned. Dick tried to address the doctor in the room, but all that came out was a strained noise through his lockjaw.
Oh, be quiet, Dick. It's nowhere near your eyes.
After a moment of the cool gel settling into his eye while an unknown alien began to treat the other, Dick slowly, painfully managed to open an eyelid. He was big. His skin was darker than any shade Kralians naturally came in. He was a mammal with a strange placement of hair growing from the top of his head and beginning to shadow his jaw. He seemed scared. Behind the familiar human wearing clothing too small for him was a Kralian doctor. Handling victims of lockjoint poisoning was dangerous work, as contact with their skin or blood could cause issues. The doctor, who Dick knew had lost a hand to repeated exposure, and all three of her other hands were badly damaged. She was nearly useless in her field with her untreatable scarring, and was only kept around for treating the sort of attack to keep the younger, more mobile doctor out of harm's way. As Dick was able to open both eyes, he realized he was in an unfamiliar medical bay. Most of the machines had broken down, but they were no use to their patients anyway. They were built for a much bigger species. The doctors, mostly elderly and with disfigured hands from decades of treating lockjoint, were tending to much more horribly disfigured Kralians. The bay, meant only for the occasional injured merchant or passenger, was not equipped for the amount of patients that littered the room with their stretchers and blood-filtering machines. Complete fire hazard.
You're not worth losing another hand for,
Dr. Till scoffed.
The human's immune to the poison, so I'm using you to teach him how to apply the medication.
The human massaged the medicated gel into Dick's jaw. It was cool, which helped the caustic burn feel better, but it stung like a million suns when it came in contact with the scabs that opened and bled. He cried out, but through his jaw came little sound. As Dick was able to open both eyes, he realized he was in an unfamiliar medical bay. Most of the machines had broken down, but they were no use to their patients anyway. They were built for a much bigger species. The doctors, mostly elderly and with disfigured hands from decades of treating lockjoint, were tending to much more horribly disfigured Kralians. The bay, meant only for the occasional injured merchant or passenger, was not equipped for the amount of patients that littered the room with their stretchers and blood-filtering machines. Complete fire hazard.
You're not worth losing another hand for,
Dr. Till scoffed.
The human's immune to the poison, so I'm using you to teach him how to apply the medication.
The human massaged the medicated gel into Dick's jaw. It was cool, which helped the caustic burn feel better, but it stung like a million suns when it came in contact with the scabs that opened and bled. He cried out, but through his jaw came little sound.
I have no idea if he can understand me, but this doesn't seem to be the first time he's encountered a lockjoint. He knew to carry the injured out of the mist and into any medical bay but ours. It had been sprayed pretty heavily.
The gel seeped into his jaw and Dick began to try and move it.
You're lucky. We transferred the higher ranks to the human ship. The Kralians are in the enemy Doomby Bay and are in beds way too small for them.
I imagine humans are very familiar with lockjoint, Dick slowly managed to make out.
They invented it. I'm still angry they were let into the Union after that little stunt. Half of this leg of this galaxy has access to the ingredients. Except coffee beans, but coffee plants are sold so much around the world that they're impossible to regulate.
Plus, it's addictive to humans.
They'd start another war if we try to regulate coffee, Dick joked.
The human pulled down the blanket to rub a generous amount of gel on the complex structure of place covering the chest.
Human, that's too much,
Dr. Till scolded to no avail.
That gel is very expensive, and we have another hour before a supply ship comes in.
Dick, however, much appreciated the extra gel as the weight caused it to seam to the joints faster.
Oh, I can breathe properly now. I think the human is good enough for you. I'll get to helping someone more important.
Dr. Till grabbed a handful of goop and walked a few feet to someone else to treat. Dick waited patiently and silently as the human loosened his arms. Soon, Dick saw the captain enter the bay. She had a false plate on her chest that showed she had lost one in battle, but she had completely managed to escape the gas. Commander Dick? Captain Philia greeted.
Captain?
While in the human ship, did you attempt diplomacy?
I ate his terrible food. Does that count?
I've told the incoming supply ship about the human with space madness. They're equipped to take him away and identify him once he's done here. However, his immunity to lockjoint makes him a very valuable member aboard our ship, and it's my opinion he has proved his loyalty. We paid back surveillance footage of the enemy ship.
Report if you would, please, Captain.
The captain took out a stick from her jacket and flicked it so it would open outward to be square. Intersecting light formed an image. It was security footage of the ship with a small map of the ship and its placement of members. As the members of the ship were spilling out or manning controls in the bridge, the camera at the port showed the door being pried open by a human with a single large metal tool. After letting himself in, he walked down the hall. With all guards playing soldier, the barely armed man walked confidently around as he seemed lost. He was briefly distracted by a lamp before eventually wandering into the bridge. The Doombeak barely came up to the human's knee, and as they shot their little hooks into them and ripped out, they found that their tool designed for ripping plates off of Crawlians only tore up the skin of a human. He reached into a pocket and pulled out a small device that Dick immediately recognized as a small laser gun that was worn by all staff on the Crawlian warship. While mostly harmless against Crawlian armor, the moment the human pointed it at the fleshy little fuzzball creatures, they were cut like butter and often began to flame at the wounds. The human nonchalantly burned through the creatures while leaving most alive but heavily injured. After that, he sprinted. He came in and out of the ship carrying injured or dead Crawlians into their medical bay where he threatened the staff. We traced the serial code on the gun, Dick. It was the one you had in your waistband when you went to the human ship.
Oh, bastard stole it,
he muttered. As I figured, you wouldn't just arm an unknown human. Nonetheless, you must have made him fond of us enough to protect us, so I won't reprimand you for letting your guard down. About his future, he likely didn't end up where he is on his own accord. He either pissed someone off that's trying to kill him in a slow, painful manner, or he killed his crew and threw their stuff out. Either way, once he's sent out and identified, he's not coming back. However, we can keep him here and not identify him for as long as he plays by our rules. He'll no doubt run into lockjoint again. It's your call.
Why is it my call? You're the captain.
She laughed. I don't want however this turns out on me. You take it.
Fine, I'll choose. Based on your opinion and my loyalty to you and trust in your judgment, I believe the human should stay for now.
You bastard, it's settled. She looked at the man. Well, he can't speak. We should probably name him.
That's fair enough.
Felix Drossik. The human jumped and stared at the sly captain with terror.
Captain, you're not gonna call the human by the name of a war criminal.
He likes it.
That's not the face of somebody that likes that name.
He responds to it, and that's the important part.
It's fair enough.
I'll arrange a sleeping spot for the human and let the supply ship know our decision. The captain made a little bow before leaving. As the hour went on, the commander was utterly bored in his hospital bed. Once he was healed enough to sit up, he took the gel and applied it to the rest of his joints under the blanket. The lack of private hospital rooms in the human ship was one thing, as he could see other Crawlians applying the gel to themselves and trying very hard not to look at others doing the same. Meanwhile, the human made zero effort to avert his gaze as he absentmindedly stared at the movements. A guard eventually came and took the human away, and once Dick finished putting gel on himself and put on some clothes, he walked out into the human ship. It was bustling with crawlians, comically small in comparison to the amenities.
"Where's the human?"
Dick would ask, and every single one seemed to know what direction he had gone in. It made sense. The human was 3 feet taller than some of the bugs. He eventually came to the only furnished bedroom in the ship. He let himself in, and the human was sat on the bed, having his eyes looked at by a Crawlian human expert. "Physically, he's pretty malnourished," the Crawlian pointed out to the nearby captain. "One of the many signs of late space madness. His ship did a good job healing him up, even with the human medical bay in bad shape. But his brain scans are fairly abnormal. I don't know how long he's been out here, but the isolation has changed the very chemistry of his brain. Humans like this have moments of lucidity, but most of the time they can be pretty violent. I'm sure you've heard the story of the human 50 years ago that was left alone for 2 years and killed his family upon returning to Earth. This man's a ticking time bomb. The laser guns work on him, but not well on us. We can handle him, can't we, Dick?"
"Yes, Captain,"
Dick agreed.
"One example of a human half a century ago does not worry me."
"Well, the good news is that humans can pack bond with any species. If this one doesn't murder you, he'll protect you and all the world contained within antimatter." The human expert began to pack up. "I'll talk to the doctor about the general safety concerns of a human in a Crawlian ship. Make sure he eats at least 3 times a day, wash your hands after handling him, and get him some clothes that actually fit." The captain nodded. "Thank you for your help. If he does murder you, I'm not legally at fault, and remember, humans aren't protected outside of the Sol system. If you don't want to care for him anymore, you can just launch him into space." "I'll keep that in mind." The captain addressed Dick as the doctor left the room. "Commander Dick, we'll be towing his ship around for now as it has things he needs to survive and the extra medical bay. Other than that, you'll be seeing very little of him. He'll keep working in the medical bay and be cared for by human experts. Did you know Dr. Commander Till actually took a class on humans?"
"No, I didn't.
I should report to my station now that I can walk." The commander slowly, painfully got into his own ship and sat down at a temporary desk while a crew cleaned out the lock joint in his. As he faced the mirror of a powered-off screen, he saw his face. Much of the plating had been made thin and rough. His eyelids were false. A good slap could break his skull. Part of his lower jaw had been replaced with durable plastic. He wished he had been warned. He didn't have time to dwell on his disfigurement. He used the monitor to check who was dead and alive in the planning of removing the enemy ship without accidentally sucking anyone out to space. Dr. Till came on over the radio.
"Commander, take your break. I need to talk with you."
Dick usually protested being dragged out of his space during his shift, but he couldn't argue with his burning body and mind. He was in no shape to be working. He gave the signal through the radio to signify that he'd be away from the visual interface for a while, but as he stood, he cried out in pain as his stiff joints ground against each other. The gel promoted the rapid regrowth of the cartilage, but it could not undo scarring or the deformities of plates making the joints not quite line up. He struggled a long way back down to the human medical bay where a nurse informed him that the doctor was in the automated garden. The same nurse took pity on the commander and spared him an electric wheelchair. He entered the control room for the automated garden. It was a plain metal room with almost no controls and instead just had a locked maintenance door to the garden which Dick could see through the large shatterproof glass window. It was mostly gutted, but there were some plots where plants were supposed to be, but had died judging by the broken down robotic arms above them. The remaining robotic arms took care of the remaining plants. The human was sat with his back against the window, fast asleep. Dr. Till was watching the automations.
"Dick, the human worked very hard today and he deserves a rest. But I think it is a complete and utter mistake to have him." "Look at your missing hand, Till. The human is saving a Crawlian from that. We haven't even gotten close to the blockade, and you'll know there'll be much more poison to come. He has a lock joint poisoning. I did a scan of his lungs.
Dick laughed.
Lockjoint? He's a human. They're not utterly immune. His exposure to the battle and the medical bay meant nothing to him, but humans for a long time underestimated their own weapon. They used to smother it on themselves before battle in case they were captured. It didn't burn their skin, but it did cause a distinct caustic burn in their lungs if they were consistently exposed for a few years. He has those burn scars, and his eyes and fingers are even damaged by it.
Does it surprise you?
He's obviously warred against us once. Once he's lucid again, he'll war with us again.
I doubt it. I think he is at least a little aware of his surroundings, and he wouldn't risk his life to save a bunch of us just to kill us.
He has space madness. Right now, he's just desperate for company. And once that's gone, Dick, there's no telling what he'll do. What pisses me off the most is that because I'm the commander of doctors, I have to handle them, even though you're the one who's keeping him here.
Would you prefer I give him a gun and make him a Marine?
I'd prefer you kick him off with a supply ship to be identified and return to a family that's probably worried sick about him.
Till left in anger. Dick sighed and looked down at the sleeping human. He gave him a light kick to wake him up. Hey, Felix. The human woke but groggily. He looked directly at Dick with the sanest eyes Dick had seen from him yet.
You should sleep in a bed. I'd let you take this wheelchair, but it's far too small for you.
The human yawned and laid his tired head back down. I like your leopard spots, he commented.
Did you just talk? Can you understand me? It's a leopard. Don't fall asleep now.